Hey, this is Luke with another Android Guys podcast. I'm here with Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Luke, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
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 You have a product to talk about today?
Yeah, I have a pair of earbuds that I've been reviewing.
Yeah. So I think I reviewed a pair of earbuds from this company, and you had the other one. So I'm interested to see your take on them.
Yes, this is the SoundPEATS Air3 Deluxe HS.
Okay.
So I think this is like the third or fourth pair of SoundPEATS to come through here.
Okay.
Maybe in the last couple of months. I would say as a whole, I'm happy to recommend the brand.
Yes.
As each of those qualifies for a specific type of need.
Okay.
But what I'm also finding is generally they are kind of a no frills kind of earbud.
Sure.
Which means that they're not necessarily high end.
Mm-hmm.
They're not feature packed. They're not going to have premium audio sound. But that doesn't mean they're poorly designed or cheap.
Sure.
I like these, the Air3 Deluxe HS. I'm not sure what the HS stands for, so if somebody knows, they might be shouting it. If you see it on the website, I'm not sure. So let me tell you a little bit about them. These are kind of like a stem design,
Right.
kind of like the AirPods. So they're Bluetooth 5.2. You can listen to them independently, put one in each ear, or take it out and just listen to one of them. There is in-ear detection. That is something you can actually toggle on and off if you want, because there's a mobile app companion that you can use. And the app also lets you configure and play with equalizer settings.
Yeah.
There are, I want to say, maybe 9 different settings based off the kind of music you're listening to. And then there's a SoundPEATS classic mode. So depending on if you're listening to like electronic, hip hop, rock, dance, that type of thing, you can select a preset for the equalizer and it will make some adjustments for you. There's like a heavy bass. There's one that's like less bass, and they are noticeable. They are something that you can discern. You can hear them kick on when you move from one to the next. You can kind of hear that adjust in real time in your ear.
Okay.
I found that depending on the music, I would listen to certain tracks and thinking, I'm going to find the equalizer setting that would best show this off. And things that, like Run the Jewels, you would think would be hip hop, right?
Right.
But I found it actually sounded better under the classic.
Okay.
And then I tried rock for, Pink Floyd.
Sure.
And then I found it actually worked better with the more bass.
Okay.
Which is, weird.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it wasn't always like that. It wasn't like they were wrong across the board. It was just kind of like, oh, this is interesting. This doesn't line up with my expectations.
Right. And each one doesn't make it sound bad. It just sounds better under a different EQ setting.
One really kind of brings that type of music out.
Right.
So I feel like, you have to name them something, but I almost felt like I wanted to rename these settings and call it, A or number 1.
Sure.
And I would find the ones that I would just kind of bounce back and forth between. But generally speaking, if you just stick with the classic, I feel like that's a pretty safe bet.
Okay.
If you're somebody who doesn't really care to kind of get more out of your music, you may not even install the app. You might just pair it through Bluetooth and listen to your music. But if you want to have that little bit of, that granular control, then that might be something you want to consider.
Okay.
The earbuds themselves, when it came to listening to music, I felt like they had a pretty decent space between the layers. Between like the lows, mids, highs, and you would hear the sound stage was pretty good.
Okay.
But I would find that it would often, I don't say often, I would find that occasionally it felt like there was just something missing from it. And that was maybe in search of the right equalizer setting.
Okay.
Because it felt like this is good, but it's just missing there's something missing at the top here,
Yeah.
or there's something at the bottom, like the
Mhm.
lows, like so playing with the equalizer settings will, results will vary, but
Mhm.
sticking with just a classic, it was a pretty good experience.
Sure.
These are IPX4 rated against water resistance.
Yeah.
They have USB-C charging on the case. They're like a round little thing that goes in your pocket, fits nicely. You're going to get about 5 hours of playback per charge. And then the carrying case is going to give you about another 15. So you're looking at about 20 hours total on a full charge.
Not bad.
That. So that's not too bad. They have a gaming mode, so that you could, and you'll do that by tapping the earbud, your left one, I think, 3 times. And it's like a multifunction button. So
Okay.
tapping that 3 times turns on game mode, which is like a low latency.
Sure.
It's supposed to be like 60 milliseconds or less.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to music, you don't care about latency.
Yeah.
Phone calls.
Right.
It's not that bad at all. But if you want to play games and you're listening for somebody sneaking up on you,
Sure.
if you're trying to match up your shooting to what you see, it's going to make a difference. On the right earbud, if you tap it 3 times, you can use your digital assistant. So Google Assistant, for instance, so that you can kind of bring that up and ask it hands-free, without picking up your phone, I should say.
Right.
The buttons you don't have any like tactile feedback. You don't feel it click or anything.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a learning curve, at least for me, to figure out like what constitutes as a tap, because you don't hear or feel anything.
Yeah.
Because one tap on the right brings your volume up. One tap on your left brings the volume down.
Okay.
Double tapping on the left goes back a track. Double tapping on the right goes forward.
Okay.
And then that triple tap is where you do your game mode or Google Assistant. So trying to figure out, like, is this 2 taps? Does it, you don't hear any beeps, you don't hear any clicks.
Gotcha.
Trying to kind of figure out where that is.
So
blind.
there's no feedback at all.
Right. And it's super, the whole thing is smooth.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, there is like a spot that you would assume where you feel like that's where the button is going to be.
Sure.
So there is that. But when you're first getting used to it, it's kind of like, do I need to go higher up the stem?
How long did it take you to get used to that?
I would say after a couple of listens.
Okay.
It's pretty quick.
So it's not that steep of a learning curve.
It's not that steep. It's just something where it was just kind of like, okay, I'm trying to turn. I'm turning on Google Assistant.
Right.
And I'm like, I was just trying to skip the track.
Now,
or how long does it take between these to turn the volume up?
Right.
When does it turn into that's 2 taps?
Is it pretty responsive after, if you get let's say you get the 3 taps right, does it?
Once you figure that out and kind of get the feel for that, it's pretty good.
Okay. That's usually what I run into when checking out all these different headphone brands or headset earbud brands is if I'm tapping, how long do I wait before I know if I messed up or it's still registering what I did?
Yeah. Am I still on that second tap waiting for my third, or has it reset?
Right.
After a couple of listens, you kind of get the feel for it.
That's good.
I tend to not mess with my music.
Yeah.
I'll put on podcasts and it's like a long form listen.
Right.
I'm not advancing tracks, going back. I'm not really taking calls. There are some buttons you can do to like accept a call, hang up, things like that. So there are all of those features in there.
Now, these have the ability to be independent, right? You can listen to either headphone, either earbud at a time. Do you know, or did you see if there's any change in what those buttons do if you're using one versus both?
I didn't, other than just to kind of like have one in my ear and listen to music.
Right.
The in-ear detection, and you can turn that on and off in the app, is really good.
Cool.
So if you take it out of your ear, if you're listening to both, it will automatically pause.
Yeah.
You put it back in the case, you can resume. That's very accurate.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, that for me is, I might just keep one on in the ear while I'm doing dishes or cleaning up after dinner, catching up on something.
Right.
And then I'm available to kind of hear somebody else if they want to talk to me.
Yep.
There's support for high-res audio and the LDAC support, those codecs.
Nice.
Those are kind of like the proprietary things, but it does support those. these are, pretty good. When I tell you the price of these things, these are $49.99.
Yes.
And if you go to Amazon as of today, before we recorded, I did a double check. They're like $39.
It's really hard to kind of complain in that price range.
Right. And that's one of the things that we run into because we see so many of these.
Sure.
Is to kind of think of them in terms of a vacuum.
Yeah.
And not, well, these don't sound as good as the nothing earbuds that I like with the stick. I prefer that. Like, it's kind of hard to do that. It's not fair to any particular brand to do that.
Sure.
And I hate to even bring up another brand in talking about it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard not to do that.
Yep.
From what we do.
Right.
However, if somebody on the street comes up and says, hey, what do you know about SoundPEATS? Are they any good? Yeah, I would definitely recommend them. Mm-hmm. I would say that I would qualify it first with tell me what you want to do.
Right.
I just want something I can listen to in the library or on my commute. Mm-hmm. I spend time, in the gym. You're not really plugged into your music. You might want, these will get pretty loud. You're not really there to dance and get lost in the music. You just want that there. They're going to work just fine for that. So I would definitely say these are worth their money in terms of, that $50 price point. Yeah. If you can get it for $40, even better.
Sure.
I scored these things across the board. They came out to like a 3.94.
Okay.
So almost a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And that, again, is based off of the $50 price point.
Yeah.
And when we first got them, their suggested retail was $60.
Yeah.
So if you can come in at $50, $40, you're doing really well for that. Yeah. I think that the Air3 Deluxe HS are something worth considering.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast.
Thanks for listening.
We appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, feedback, concerns, comments, anything, shoot us an email at podcast@AndroidGuys.com. We'd love to hear from you one way or the other. Luke, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Luke Gaul, Gaul.
And I'm on Instagram at Scott Webster and Twitter as SWebster77. Until next time, thanks for listening.
See ya.